Okay, it's nice to have you here. So today I'd like to share with you something that I think is, for many of us, it's the missing link, as it were. What it is that prevents many of us from experiencing the fulfillment that we really want. And it's not for lack of effort. It's not for lack of trying. It's not because you haven't done enough. It's not because you haven't worked hard enough. Something else. Now, to be fair, there can be several factors involved. So it's not just one thing. The people who want just one thing, uh, that's not, I'm not for you. If you're just wanting one thing. Uh, Maybe one day I'll get to level 27 enlightenment and I'll be able to give you one thing. But until then, I'm I can only uh, share with you honestly what it is that I actually know from my own experience. And from my own experience, there are multiple variables at play. But what I want to share with you today is one of those variables. And I think it's a really important and often overlooked variable. It's one that I don't, I don't think many people talk about. There's you probably want me to tell you what it is. Yeah. I will tell you in just a moment. Um, there's a biblical quote from the book of Matthew, which I've it's one of them that really has been valuable to me throughout my life, and it's relevant here. It's to paraphrase, Jesus is saying, why are you worried about clothes? He says, look at the lilies there in the field. They're not toiling away like you. They're not stressing and straining. And yet, he says, look at them. Just look how finely clothed they are. This is even Solomon in all his glory was never clothed like that. This is if God will clothe the lilies in that way, then why will he not clothe you just as finely? So this idea that's so popular that you've got to hustle, you've got to grind, you got to try harder, you got to work for it, you got to earn it. And so if you don't have what you think you need, if you don't have what you think you want, if you're not feeling the fulfillment, if you're not experiencing what it is that you think is necessary for you, then what this culture generally tells you is, well, you got to work harder. You just haven't done enough yet. But the message here is that it's not about working harder. It's not about straining and stressing. It's about being willing to receive. Now, many people might say, well, no, I'm happy to receive. I'll receive all day long. I've got no problems receiving. If you think so, and that's working out for you, then great. But if it's not working out for you, if you're feeling unfulfilled, if you're feeling like there's this pressure to do more, then you might really want to check this out. You might want to investigate and find out how good of a receiver are you? Because it might be that you're not quite as good of a receiver as you thought. I think that uh, we really are trained not to receive. I think we're trained, as I said, that we need to earn it. So we believe that we need to earn, we need to deserve. But it's not about that, really. It's not about deserving. I mean, look around in the world and notice, aren't there plenty of people are who seem to at least have what it is that you want to have? And do they deserve it more than you do? Do they really deserve it more than you do? And if so, how so? In what way do they deserve it more than you? This idea of deserving, it's actually just nonsense. It it really does not serve you to believe in the idea of deserving or earning. You might ask yourself, who does it serve? And ultimately, I'm not sure that it really serves anybody. But certainly, I guess along the way, along the chain of things, there are there are those who benefit relatively from people believing in the idea of deserving and earning, because people will continue to metaphorically whip themselves and do the bidding of others in hopes that they'll get some reward. If I'm good, I'll get noticed, I'll get rewarded. But it's really not like that. It's not about deserving. It's not about earning. It's not about being worthy. A large part of it, so I don't want to emphasize this part, but I'll mention briefly. One part of it, a very important part of it, is knowing what you want. But I emphasize that a lot. So today I don't want to emphasize that, but I'm mentioning it just because if I didn't, it would be a disservice to anybody who hears this and they don't know the context that I'm usually just going on and on and on about how important it is to know what you want. But today I just want to emphasize the tremendous importance of receiving. Because if you, even if you know what you want and you imagine you go to a restaurant and you look at the menu and you see something on the menu, you think, ooh, that's it. That's what I want. And you place your order and then they come to serve your food and they bring it to you. And they try to put it in front of you and you say, oh, no, 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 no. Oh, I couldn't. I haven't earned it. I don't deserve it. I'm not worthy of it. Come back later. Maybe I'll have earned it then. So knowing what you want is obviously really important because if you don't know what you want, you can't place the order. But when it's delivered and you say, oh no, then see, God won't deny your free will. You've been given free will and you exercise it. So if you say no, what's God going to do? You know, you're like, Please, God, give me the money. Please, God, give me the love. Please, God, give me. And then it's like, okay, here you go. And you're like, oh, no, no. God says, but you said you wanted it. You say, no, 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 no. Now you might think that's crazy because you say, no, 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 Joey, you don't understand. I mean, if somebody showed up and gave me the money, I would definitely accept the money. Well, is it so true? I mean, first of all, because for many of us, people do show up and give us the money and we say no, which is crazy. But also I understand sometimes you say, no, 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 nobody's shown up and tried to give me any money. But you don't have the eyes to see what it is that is being offered. You think you do, but you really don't. So you reject things. You say no, but it's like you know, it's been a long time since I've gone. I don't know even know if if movie theaters even exist any longer. That's how out of touch I am. But once upon a time, there was a thing called a movie theater. Maybe they still exist. And when I went to them many years ago, there would be these things that would, the coming attractions. You remember those coming attractions? They'd sneak previews. They'd show you, trying to tempt you so you'd want to see more movies. So it's sort of like that. Sometimes you're getting the coming attractions. You're getting what comes before. But if you say no to that, if you go to the theater and you say, I'm going to watch this movie, I've got the ticket for such and such movie. And then you sit down and you see the coming attractions for some other movies and you say, what, this is not for me. This is not for me. So you leave. But you didn't understand how it worked. So then you didn't receive what was yours because you rejected it. You said, it's not for me because you didn't recognize it. But sometimes it's like that. There's things that come before, and you have to be willing to receive those because they all go together. This is like many years ago, I read a book written by Alan Watts called the book. I think it's called The Book on the Taboo Against Knowing Yourself. And in that book, I think that's actually the book also where I got the Chinese farmer story from, which is one that I often use, but this is a different one I'm going to tell you today. He talks about, he says, imagine that you're on one side of a fence, and it's one of those picket fences, so that they have the slats, and one of the slats is missing, and you are on the side of this fence, and you're looking through that missing slat, and on the other side of the fence, there's a cat, and the cat walks by, and you see a head, and then you see a body, and then you see a tail. And then the cat turns around and walks back the other way. And again, you see a head, and you see a body, and you see a tail. And you think, aha, I know how this works. There's a head, and then the head causes the body, and then the body causes the tail. That's how it works. That's what it is. But that's not really what it is, right? There's not a head that causes a body that causes a tail. There's a cat. And he goes on to point out it's not even really proper to say there's a cat. There's no such thing as a cat. There's a happening. There's some process. There's this living occurring that's going on. It'd be more proper to call it a catting than it would be to call it a cat. So we think that there are these separate things. We think that we can separate the things out, that you can have this thing separate from that thing. But it doesn't work like that. There's one occurrence, one happening. So when you make the request, you place your order. You say, I want, speaking of cats, catting, there's a cat, very much catting here, knocking things over. Hold on. She doesn't like to, she doesn't like to just sit. Come here. Um, so we think, okay, I'm going to place my order and I'm going to, and then I know how this is going to work. I'm going to get, it's going to happen in this certain way. Sometimes it works that way, and sometimes it works a different way. So if it shows up in a way other than exactly how you expect, and you reject it because you decide, well, this isn't it, you might be making a mistake. You might be rejecting what it is that you want. Uh, it's also another Jesus quote. Jesus also says, you know, if he says it's a paraphrase, but you know, if you ask, then you'll receive. You know, he was, who knows exactly the words that he said. I don't know who was there and who was transcribing, but probably I think that could be expanded a little bit. It's probably not that if you ask, then you will receive. It's probably if you ask, it will be given. Receiving is optional, you see. It's more like if you ask, then you could receive. Receiving is possible if you ask. If you ask, it's like if you go to the restaurant and you don't place an order, you're not very likely to receive the order. If you go to the restaurant and you place the order, then as long as things are working properly at the restaurant, they're going to bring the meal to you and try to serve it to you. But will you receive it? Well, that's optional. So we are now again, many people are going to think that I'm off my rocker and crazy here because they're going to say, I don't know what you're talking about. This you're insane. I'm perfectly good at receiving. I receive all the time. I would receive so much more if only more were given. And I really strongly encourage you to consider this because this is in my view, this is part of a series. This meeting today is part of a series of what I perceive are the most important things for living a really fulfilled life. And I endeavored to put them in order of priority. I think the first one was pretty clearly the most important. After that, it gets a little blurry. It's hard to say. They're kind of tied for importance. So this one is also really, really important, even though I think most people will have a difficult time really wrapping their head around this at first. But if you really start to explore it, I think you're going to see how powerful it is, how much this one thing can change things in your life. Because how much harder are you going to work? How much more time are you going to find? I don't know about you, but I ain't going to work any harder and I'm not going to find any more time. I'm, you know, I don't seem to be able to find any more time and I don't seem to be able to push myself to work any harder. So those variables for most of us are kind of maxed out. And if that's what it's about, if that's how you're going to experience the fulfillment, that's not a very hopeful scenario. if you need to work harder, if you need to find more time, if you need to push yourself, that's not a very hopeful picture. It's worse than that. It's bleak. Who wants to live in that kind of world anyway, where it's all just about whipping yourself and pushing yourself to work harder? So what I'm proposing here is it's really like I say this often now. I think to me this is very cheerful news, really cheerful news that there's this other overlooked variable, which is receiving. Now, from my perspective, one of the reasons why many of us have so much difficulty with receiving, and I think what I'm about to say, will probably click for a lot of people. So even if what I've said so far didn't make a lot of sense to you, I think this part might. I think one of the main reasons why many people are challenged in receiving, why they're not receiving to their fullest capacity, is because of fear. It's because of distrust. So just notice if that might be true for you. If it might be true in your life that you often uh, are feeling a sense of urgency, if you feel even a sense of desperation, you have a sense that you're alone. These are all indications of fear dominating your life. And there's, when you're fearful, then it's very difficult to receive. Like biologically, you're not wired in such a way that fear and being receptive go together. They are kind of opposite to one another from a biological perspective. If the predator is chasing you, you don't you don't need to, you know, like eat a nice meal and procreate. Not a priority, right? If the predator is chasing you, you you become totally focused on getting away from the predator, not receiving, getting away. So many of us have been programmed in such a way that we live our lives in this chronic state of fear. I'm not going to be okay. I don't have enough. It's all going to run out. I'm going to be all alone. And then the strategies come after that. Well, then I better work harder. But the basis of that is this fear, sense of lack. I wonder, does anybody here, could you let me know if that makes sense to you? Yes, got a couple of people. Anybody else? Just two? Just two? Because I mean, if it's just two people, got three people, four people, five people. Okay, a few more people. So what you want is available to you. This has been promised so many times by so many masters. They've offered this reassurance, but we fall back into this habit of fear over and over and over. So it's like we really are not hearing. We're really not getting the message. So we take these messages and then we twist them into exactly their opposite. We take the messages and we twist them into I've got to whip myself, I've got to beat myself up, I've got to try harder, there's something wrong with me, I've got to fix myself, and once I've fixed myself, then I'll be worthy, then I'll deserve it. I've got to do all these things so that I can earn goodness. And so if but how well is that working? And you can say it's not working well because it's not, right? I mean, it's just not working well. It's not working well on an individual basis. It's not working well on a collective basis. So might it then be time to really seriously consider a different way? What is it that we have misunderstood, overlooked? And I'm proposing that this, as I said, for many people is likely to be a missing link. So now, logically, a question would probably arise, which is, well, what do I do about it? What's the answer? How do I solve this? I mean, if you're like, okay, I guess I can kind of understand it makes sense. If I go to a restaurant and I place an order and then I refuse it, then I'm going to be hungry. And I guess it makes sense that because I do seem to be fearful, and I do seem to wake up in at 3 in the morning, thinking to myself, oh my God, I don't have enough. Oh my God, I'm not gonna be okay. I'm gonna end up toothless, homeless under the bridge. And if it's not at 3 in the morning, if it's not 4 in the morning, then it's shortly after you wake up at 7 or whatever time, right? Is there anybody here who gets to like noon and you don't have one of those thoughts? Anybody? Where do you get to noon and you're totally good? Nobody's gonna say, so one person says, no way. Okay, great. So at least I know at least I know I'm talking to the right crowd. But it's not just you, it's everybody. It's everybody. Even the people, think about this, the billionaires. Why do they need more money? They don't, right? They don't need more money, but they keep chasing after more money. It's never enough for them. Why do you suppose that is? Same reason. Because they wake up, whether it's at 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning or 7 in the morning, at some point early on, they're having those thoughts too, like, oh my God, I don't have enough. Something's wrong. I need something else. I'm not okay. I'm gonna end up toothless, homeless under the bridge. It might not be that specific thought for them, but something like that. I don't have enough love. I don't have enough adoration. I don't have enough approval. I don't have enough. So I think, in talking with people, I this issue of safety comes up like pretty much universally. Safety. When I'm talking with people, exploring what is it that is motivating their choices, their actions. Safety. They're wanting safety, security. And the thing about safety and security is uh, you can never get enough. You can never get enough. But people don't realize this. So they keep chasing after it. They keep thinking, I need more safety and security. When I have more safety and security, then finally things are going to be okay. They just need more safety and security. But it doesn't matter how much safety and security you have because you never have enough. Because think about it. Unless you have absolute, 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 think about that for a second, absolute safety and security, you will not have enough, right? Because any little tiny bit of insecurity ruins the whole thing. It's like the expression a bad apple. Do you know where that expression comes from? Because if you have a single bad apple, it will ruin the whole bunch. So it's like what the tiniest little bit of insecurity ruins all the so-called security that you have. It doesn't matter. A fortress, you have a fortress around your fortress. This was when I was a child. This was when I was a child, this was my I would spend times fantasizing about this. I was worried that the military was going to come and attack my home with their tanks. It's funny, but terrible at the same time. Can you imagine what Midwestern kid? What on earth was I? Where did I get this idea? I don't know, but I'm thinking they're gonna come with tanks and attack my home in the middle of a cornfield, you know. But so I'd fantasize about, I need to have a fortress. I need my home, my house needs to be fortified, but then I need a fortress around the fortress, and then I need a fortress around that fortress. Come to think of it, I need a fortress around that fortress too. I guess I need another fortress around that fortress. It just keeps going. You never can have enough fortresses. Never have enough fortification because any little bit of insecurity, any little tiny bit ruins the whole thing. You're like, oh shit. I thought if I had $1 billion and I had, like 100 lovers, because just in case, like 100 should do, right? If you have 100 lovers and $1 billion, nah, make it 200 billion due to inflation. And you get and you have your own like team, your medical team, your fitness coaches and your nutritionists and everything to keep you, you know, in perfect health. You got your, nutritional supplement routine and everything. You got the whole thing, you got it dialed in. It's like, oh man, something could go wrong. Something. There's still like it's like, oh man, there's still the possibility of nuclear warfare or something. Something could still happen. So that's the dead end. Just saying. Thinking that the answer is to get absolute security and safety is a dead end. It will not work. Unless you have a way to get absolute safety and security, and you don't. At least, well, we'll get to it in a moment, but in the way that you presently think of yourself, you don't. Because all of the desire for safety and security has to do with how you think of yourself. I am this person. I am these relationships. I am these needs, these desires, these preferences. It's all to do with how you think of yourself. So your Because just think about it, all the things that would compromise your safety and security, they all have to do with your ideas of yourself. You say, oh, well, I wouldn't be 100% safe and secure if my lover, whatever, you know, whatever it is, whatever, if your lover dies, if your lover cheats on you, if your lover wants something that you don't want, whatever it is, you say, oh, then I won't be secure. I won't be safe and secure if I don't have a certain amount of money. I won't be safe and secure if I feel physically uncomfortable. So, so your safety and security all has to do with your ideas of yourself. But this is where we usually start. We start from the assumption of I know who I am these things. And then we set about trying to secure those things that we think we need in order to protect our ideas of ourselves. And then we just get ourselves trapped in this anxiety trap because you can never properly secure all the things that you think you need to secure. So I want to propose something that's fairly radically different than the way that we normally approach things. Because as I've suggested, from my point of view, I don't see any way to get the security that and safety that the way that most of us normally are trying to get that. If you have some great ideas that I have not thought of in regard to that, let me know. If you have a solution to that, if you know how to maintain your idea of yourself and get the absolute safety and security, do let me know because a lot of people will be happy to know about that solution. But I have really investigated this a lot and I have yet to find that. That seems to me to be just a total dead end. So my proposal is it's unlikely to be popular anytime soon, but I do really believe that it is a well, it is a real solution. It is a real alternative. So if you have had enough of the misery generated by the old way, if you're tired of the self-abuse and the exhaustion and the constant anxiety, then you might be interested in this new way. But as I often say, I'm the last stop for people because this is really not something that most people are going to be interested in because it is so radically different. Uh, so my proposal is this. Let's start with how do you know to be afraid? It would be from past experience, wouldn't it? You've had experiences and you decided, well, those were bad experiences. And based on those experiences and your interpretation, those are bad experiences, you say, well, never again. Can't allow that kind of thing to happen again. And God forbid anything worse. Definitely can't allow anything worse than that. because but notice the so so you had some experience and you didn't like that experience. So you decided that was you decided that was bad. And you decided that because that kind of thing happened, because that thing happened, therefore it could happen again. And because it could happen again and it's bad, you want to make sure it won't happen again. Okay. And and even one step beyond that, if something like that could happen, then something worse could happen, right? I mean, if you say, well, thank God it was only that and not something worse. But since I know that something like that could happen, I also now believe that something even worse could happen. And I definitely need to protect against that. And then it goes on because then you say, well, then you have, if you have children, then you're like, oh, well, now not only do I need to protect myself, but I need to protect my own, now I need to protect my children and my grandchildren. And, I need to protect these extensions of myself. They all need to be protected against all of these terrible things that I know could happen because I had some experience in the past. Seems reasonable only because it's what everybody does. But actually, it's kind of unreasonable in this sense. See, would you say that you exist now? So anybody who would claim that you do not presently exist? If so, we have some other interesting conversations to have, but probably you would agree that you exist now. Yes? If you exist now, and if it's true, I can't prove this is true, and it's not necessary to prove it, but if it is true that that there was a past and that you had those experiences, then wouldn't it also be true by virtue of the fact that you exist now that you survived? Is there anybody who would say that you did not survive? Is there anybody who thinks that you did not survive some past experience? So unless I've just confused the hell out of everybody, it seems like you would you would probably agree that you survived all of your past experiences. Yes? Need I say more? See, we just had an interpretation. We decided that we flipped everything. We decided, oh no, oh no, some terrible thing is going to happen to me in the future, and I won't survive. Even though you've never experienced that. There's nobody here has experienced not surviving something. But we came up with this idea that that's somehow true. Even though we've never experienced it, we've never, ever, ever experienced that. We have this idea that comes about, theoretical idea. So I see some questions coming through, and we'll look at those in a moment. So now what we're doing is we're bracing. Can you notice that? Can you notice that you're bracing? Trying to protect yourself, to fortify yourself against something that might happen. And that's what you're wanting a solution to. That's what prevents you from receiving because you're bracing against something that you think is going to happen. So you're trying to solve this bracing, this resistance by getting absolute security, which is not possible as far as I can tell. But it's based upon something that's not actually true. You've never experienced it. You're fantasizing about it. So, in other words, you've you're spooking yourself. Now, like I said, this is not likely to be a popular idea anytime soon because it's so totally different than how most people are thinking and how most of society is operating because most of society is operating on this idea that, oh, no problem. No problem. You want more safety and security? No problem. Here, I'll sell it to you. There's a lot of money to be made in selling more safety and security. So, but but the but what I'm proposing is that it's all is a false premise to begin with. Now, to make things even more complicated or difficult, I I mean not particularly more complicated or difficult than they already are, but just point out a complication or difficulty about this whole thing. You might say, well, yes, but many of these experiences are just objectively unpleasant. I don't want them. I don't want to be, being toothless homeless under the bridge would be objectively unpleasant. Yes, maybe, but not really. I'm not suggesting anybody should or needs to aspire to being toothless homeless under the bridge, or that you should aspire to any of the things that you don't want. But I am suggesting that resisting them and fearing them and trying to fortify yourself against them is uh, making you a poor receiver. So if you really want what you really want, then you might want to consider this, what I'm proposing today, which is, I understand, uh, probably challenging, probably not particularly comfortable, probably not all that clear because it's on a couple of accounts. One, because it's so radically opposed to uh, how we normally live our lives and think about things. And two, maybe because I haven't yet figured out a way to clearly express it sufficiently clearly. So just notice, and this right now can be a very practical uh, thing. You know, this could actually be a practical exploration that could give you very practical results. So just notice, what is it that you are afraid of? What is it that you spend a lot of your time and energy, either consciously or unconsciously, trying to avoid? And notice when you think about that, what happens? What's your experience? How do you, what's your automatic reaction to that? What I'm proposing is many of you will probably notice, if you really investigate that, you'll probably notice that you tense up, you brace, you resist. So this is the fear that I'm talking about. And if you really investigate it, you'll notice that what's happening, and you need to slow it down a lot to actually recognize this, but you could probably notice that what's happening is just what I described earlier, that you're referencing past experiences and then you're projecting that into the future and then you're kind of adding this little, giving it this little boost by saying, well, and it could be even worse. Could be even worse. So there's that thing that happened in the past, and boy, that was uncomfortable and confusing and challenging. And that could happen again in the future, and maybe even something worse. And then you tense up, embrace, and then the strategies start. Oh no, I can't let that happen. I gotta, and then whatever, fill in the blank, whatever your strategies are, which usually involve some kind of, well, there could be avoidance. There could be avoidance strategies. I'm totally overwhelmed. I'm just gonna lie down on the couch and eat Oreos and watch reruns of Judge Judy. But in many cases, it's this, I gotta try harder. I gotta struggle. I gotta strain. I gotta stress. I gotta push myself. I gotta make sure that doesn't happen. I gotta get more security. I gotta fortify. I gotta make sure. I gotta get more money, more lovers, more 12 pack abs, you know, just for insurance. So that what I'm proposing is that all of that stuff that that happens there, the habit of going into the past and then projecting that in the future and then trying to brace and protect against it is one, unnecessary, and two, harming you, blocks you from receiving what it is that you want. And this is if I think I'm really pushing things a bit here with what I'm about to say because I can tell I've already kind of gone too far with this. Some people are freaked out a little bit, but I'll say it anyway because I think there's some truth to it. How do you know that, like I said earlier, like the coming attractions kind of idea? How do you know that what is um, how do you know that whatever it is that you're thinking you need to avoid, how do you know that that's not actually the gateway through which what you want arrives? Like maybe you've gone through that gateway halfway so many times, and then you got freaked out and you turned around. But how do you know? I mean, because if you just allowed yourself to actually go all the way through the gateway, you might be pleasantly surprised. Now, I know some people, like I said, some people are not going to like that idea at all. Some people are going to go weird places with that. They're going to spin that into weird sorts of like, you know, sadomasochist stuff, and that which is not at all where I'm going with it. I'm just saying that, like I said earlier, we really don't have eyes to see what it is that's actually happening, but we make a lot of assumptions, and those assumptions are based on interpretations from the past. It's not even what happened in the past, it's our interpretations from the past. Because as I said, you survived. I understand people have experienced all kinds of things, and I understand they're not the kinds of things that we would wish on anyone. So I'm not proposing, I'm not saying, oh, let's celebrate all of these things and let's all, do more of them and let's have more of this stuff in the world. Let's bring more of the pain and the all of this stuff. I'm not suggesting that, but I'm suggesting that if you really tell the truth, all the things that happened in the past, they were just exactly what they were and nothing more. And that was never a problem. But the story that you've told about it is a problem for you. And you keep repeating that story over and over and over, projecting that in the future and then trying to protect yourself against it, which blocks you from receiving what you want. So I know this is, so some people are saying, what's you said there was a practical bit in here, whereas the practical bit, this doesn't seem too practical to me. What I'm pointing out is that the practical piece is to notice how you are blocking yourself from receiving, to notice that it's optional, and to notice that you have other possibilities. See, because the world, the society that we live in tends to validate this one view, which is you're a victim. The world is a hostile, scary place. You need the solution is safety and security. And if that worked, then things would be very different than they are. So uh, you could keep doing more of the same, which uh, I suppose to some extent we're all going to keep doing until we don't, until we've had enough of it. But at some point, when you've had enough, then I'm just proposing here's another alternative. Uh, the you're not a victim. You survived everything. Everything that happened was only exactly what it was and nothing more. The meaning that you've given to it, the story that you've told about it, which has been scary for you and harmful, which you've been in the habit of repeating over and over and projecting into the future and then trying to protect yourself against, is actually harming you, even though it's dressed up as the solution. So it seems like because it's what you've done and because it's what society teaches you is the only way, it seems like it's the only way. It seems like this is the only option that's available. I've got to dig around in the past. I've got to dredge up all the old stories, the scary stories. I got to project that into the future, and I got to try and protect myself against all of that, even though it's an impossible task, even though trying to do that just makes me feel miserable and anxious. And even though it blocks me from receiving what I really truly want. And so through that awareness, then this new possibility emerges, which is just to just to receive it as it is. See, so is the interesting thing is that through receiving what is, we're actually beginning to practice receiving. We're becoming more skillful at receiving. So to receive what is just to notice it exactly as it is. So what's happening? It's just this. Whatever it is, it's just this. And to be really clear, I'm not suggesting that a person should take this and, as I said earlier, I'm not suggesting to distort this in any kind of weird masochism or anything like that. This is not about saying, oh, well, somehow it's virtuous and good just to allow uh, people to abuse me and do harm to me and things like that. That's not it at all. It's still uh, good and wise to uh, take sensible, reasonable action to care for yourself. I'm just saying that there are certain things sometimes where we find ourselves in certain situations and we don't know what else we can do. Sometimes there are just things that are happening and that's what's happening and we don't know what else we can do. And when that occurs, then we could turn that into something that we will use to harm ourselves and scare ourselves and reject and resist, and embrace and live life in this anxious way. Or we could choose to practice receiving just as it is, just this as it is, whatever it is. Not the story that we tell about it, not the meaning that we've assigned to it, not the meaning anyone else has assigned to it, not the meaning that society has assigned to it, not any of that, but just exactly as it is, just the pure, raw, experience exactly as it is, which is only that. Sometimes we struggle with things for years or decades or generations. And, there are these like generational traumas too that just get passed down. And uh, there's no, there's no, it, there's no resolution to it in the usual way, in the way that's taught. It just keeps going. It just gets perpetuated over and over and over and over and over. And at a certain point, we become exhausted. We say, "Oh God, is this how life is? I don't want life like this. I can't go on like this." But society doesn't offer us another alternative, and that's what I'm proposing is an alternative that you don't have to continue to do that. And through this, your life could become very significantly different, I would say, enriched, because you'd start to receive all of the life that is here, all the life that is available, because there's so much life available. It's just that it sometimes is wearing costumes that we have not learned to accept. So that's the cheerful message that I wanted to share with you today. I see that there are already some questions in the chat, which I'll be happy to respond to. And if anybody else has any other questions, you can put them in the chat and take time to respond to them. So we've got a question about the active relaxation method. Would you recommend or can you do it when playing sport? When I do this method when doing an activity, I can easily get distracted and lose focus because my mind is concentrating on the activity. Also, when writing desires. All right, so I'll respond to the first question first. Uh, you certainly you certainly could, and to a certain extent, it would be useful for those who don't know what the active relaxation method is. It's a simple inquiry that I have shared. Um, I don't know if I have a video on it. I have several videos on it on YouTube, but none of them are, I don't think any of them are just called the active relaxation method. Um, so I don't have a good reference to point people to learn more about that at the moment. But to this question, um, so the active relaxation method to uh, is a method that allows you to have more conscious awareness. Uh, and so conscious awareness is very powerful for a number of things, including for producing conscious change. Uh, so just becoming aware consciously of how you are doing something in and of itself produces change and starts to optimize things according to your intentions. So that's can be really powerful. However, we are we have both conscious and unconscious uh, capacities, and Our unconscious, so the conscious, our conscious capacity only allows us to be conscious of one thing at a time. Uh, Whereas our unconscious capacity, as far as I know, is unlimited. Um, so once you are able to, once something is an unconscious pattern, then that can, those unconscious patterns can get stacked and occur together simultaneously, which is why you can like walk and chew gum at the same time, for example. And so that's really useful and powerful. And when you're playing sports, you're using a lot of that. So uh, the in general, when if you're playing sports competitively with the intention of uh, winning, uh, then you probably are not wanting to use the active relaxation method at that time. Uh, I would generally recommend the active relaxation method for if you're using that when playing sports. I would recommend that for the purposes of training, so that you can become aware of any inefficiencies in your performance, your patterns, so that you can optimize those. So generally it would be more applicable for training purposes because it's really about learning. So, and there's just a difference, like not that you can't learn through performance, but generally speaking, in most cases, performance is a is what happens as a result of the training that the learning that has come before. And so usually the focus in performance is unconscious. This is why like optimal performance is usually like there's a lot of research about flow states and optimal performance, and flow states are unconscious. So uh, that's my answer to that. Um, then you ask, when writing desires, when we do the ask framework, is writing I want, desire, okay, and read it various times throughout the day. If I write my desire and read it like affirmations, I sometimes get bored. Yeah, it's fine. I know. I think you're asking because I want. Some people would suggest that thinking or writing desires in terms of I want is suggesting that you don't have it and yada yada. Um, and I think that that kind of minutia is mostly unnecessary and unhelpful in regard to this. So it's perfectly fine. Because the thing is, when you say, I don't think it's so much about the wording. I think it's about uh, when it's just about the focus. It's about where your attention goes. So if you say, I want whatever it is you want, I want $1 million, then in order to think that, you have to imagine having $1 million. So, so it kind of doesn't matter whether you say, I want $1 million, or say, I have $1 million, or I'm so grateful I have $1 million, or whatever. I don't think it particularly matters. Um, Different strokes for different folks. Some people might prefer one way, and that's totally fine. Do it whatever way you like and whatever gives you the results. Your results really should be the guide. So if it's working for you, that's great. If it's not working for you, rethink it. So somebody says, please describe what a good receiver is. So a good receiver is to really, I think a good receiver from my perspective is summed up by this idea that you've probably heard me say before, which is uh, everything that happens is for the greatest good. So rather than thinking my small conscious mind is the knower of all things and knows what is good and bad and right and wrong and uh, desirable and undesirable and is in a position to judge everything, and I will believe that and worship my conscious mind as the supreme God. I would propose instead of that, which is what I think most people do. Um, I would propose to acknowledge that there is an intelligence which is operating the entire universe inside of you and outside of you. It is doing all of the things. It is spinning all of the electrons in everywhere, all the time, completely perfectly, without a single error ever. And that is has greater capacities than your conscious mind. So to and then to put that in also into the context that I talked about today, to acknowledge that I've survived. I've had my stories. And most of those stories were given to me. And but those stories are not the truth. Those stories are just stories. And if those stories are not working well for me, if those stories are scaring me, if those stories are, if I'm using those stories to shut myself down, to close myself off, to reject life, to make myself unhappy and anxious, then uh, I don't need to continue to do that to myself. I don't need to continue to believe those stories. Instead, I could open myself to something which is greater than those stories, greater than my conscious mind, greater than any of that stuff, and acknowledge that I that that all of this is happening. I've been I'm alive. I exist. This is all a miracle. It's only stories that say otherwise. It really is. It's only stories that say otherwise. This is stories that say, oh, this thing happened and that was bad, and this other thing happened and that was bad, and then, oh, these other things could happen and that would be really even worse. And woe is me, and I better just brace and protect myself and see what I can, try to eke through this existence with. But but to receive is just to say, you know what? This is a miracle. I don't understand any of it. I don't know any of it. And I'm tired of hurting myself with these terrible stories that I've been telling myself about how I'm a victim and how life is this awful thing. And I don't want to do that to myself anymore. So that would be to receive. Somebody says deserving is just something we tell to children so they behave. I don't, yeah, I mean, there's something of that there. I don't, it's, it, it, it serves, uh, purposes beyond just children. I mean, it has to do with trying to coerce anybody, children or not. The idea of deserving works pretty well with adults as well as children for the most part. Somebody says, what is worse, having bad experience and surviving versus having bad experiences and not surviving? Well, what's interesting is the way that the setup. So what's worse? And that's my that's sort of the larger point is just to notice that that's how we're oriented is what's worse. Uh, is that actually serving us to think in that way that like what's worse? So what's worse? It's like you got to select between the lesser of two evils. And I'm questioning the very foundation of that. So having a bad experience, how do you know it's a bad experience? I mean, either way, you say you have a bad experience and you survive, or you have a bad experience and you don't survive. So these are the two options that you're proposing. And what they have in common is bad experience. So let's start there. How do you know it's a bad experience? I made reference earlier to the Chinese farmer story, which is relevant here. So uh, sorry to tell it again for those who've heard the story so many times, but for anybody who doesn't know the story, uh, Chinese farmer story goes like this: the Chinese farmer uh, loses his horses; they run away, and his neighbors say, "Oh, that's it's too bad," and he says, "Maybe." And then the next day, bunch of wild horses come and show up at the farmer to the farmer and stay with the farmer. And his neighbors say, "Wow, how fortunate for you." And the farmer says, "Maybe." And then the next day, the farmer's son is training some of these new horses and he falls off of one of them and breaks his leg. And the neighbors say, "Oh, how unfortunate." And the farmer says, "Maybe." And then the next day, the military comes through. They're conscripting all of the young men in all of the villages to go fight their war. And they pass over uh, the Chinese farmer's son because he has a broken leg. He's of no use to them. So is that fortunate or unfortunate? If you've been paying attention, then the answer is maybe, right? Because we don't know. It's like does the cat, is it the head that causes the body that causes the tail? There's one happening here. It's one happening. And so so we say, oh, it's a bad experience. If you say it's a bad experience, what you don't realize is, but what's actually true, if you really get this and pay attention, is that you're actually saying it's a bad life. You're saying life is bad. Because if you're going to judge any part of it as bad, you're judging the whole thing as bad. I know you don't think that's true, but if you really get this, if you really understand what I'm pointing to, you'll see how that's true. And then you might see that that's just nonsense. There's no way to do that. Just like the Chinese farmer story. We just don't know. It all, at what point do you stop it and say, this is good or this is bad? This is like, I've made this reference before and I still don't know who the director was. So I really should get my information, my act together. But there's some movie director who had a quote, says, the difference between, with a movie, the difference between, I think a comedy and a tragedy is it's in the editing. Uh, it's when you stop the movie, when you choose to end it. So it's it's like, and if you think about story, that's the thing about stories. Stories always have a beginning, a middle, and an end. You cannot have a story without a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so there's always something, even though stories are really powerful and can be useful devices, they are they can be misleading because they are suggestive by virtue of the fact that it has a beginning and a middle and an end, that somehow you can know something about something. But it's helpful to keep in mind that the beginning is not the beginning and the end is not the end. Those are artificial. So we just have this continuous happening. And so to call it a bad experience is self-deception. And it's self-deception in a way that's not good for you. So because plenty of people would say, "Oh, I had a bad experience," and then they use that forever as this reason to have a miserable life. Oh, life sucks. I had bad experience and I'll never get over that, and I can never, no matter what I do, it's never going to be okay. But there are other people who say, well, I had this experience. It was really difficult and challenging and confusing and painful and whatever else when I had that in that moment or shortly after, whatever it was. But in the bigger picture of my life, it was an important catalyst for my life's work. I've done all of these things that are really meaningful and important that for me that I couldn't have done had I not had that experience. So is it a bad experience? It's just like, and I'm not going to say it's a good, I mean, I think it's more helpful to frame it as a good experience, but it's not actually true either. It's not true to say it's a good experience. I just think it's a more helpful way to frame it for those who are really, um, like I would say, framing it as a good experience, framing things as good, I think can be a helpful stepping stone. And then for those who are really brave, you can just do away with good and bad altogether. Um, it's a much, much more open way to live to say it's neither good nor bad. I don't know. Um, much more, many more opportunities, much more freedom that way, but not for everybody at the start. And another thing about this is it's also like so this is proposing you could either survive or not survive. And my point is you've never not survived. You have no there's no such thing. That's a made up idea. It's a total made up idea. You can say, well, it seems like there's such a thing as not surviving. I can it seems like I've there are stories about people who don't survive, told from but not told from their point of view. And you said, well, that's not fair because they didn't survive. They can't tell from their point of view because they didn't survive. But you don't know. Because and my point is we have no proof of the existence of not surviving. That's just a story that's told about others, but not from their own point of view. We don't ever have anybody's story about not surviving from their own point of view. Now you might say, well, that's an impossibility. Yes, that's my point. And what's more important is from your point of view, the only story you can tell that's truthful is surviving. So therefore, actually, it's really kind of a it's a false polarity, the idea of surviving and not surviving. Because if you have no evidence, at least in your own experience of not surviving, then the idea of surviving is sort of just nonsense. Doesn't, why would you have to even have that idea unless there was the reality of not surviving? So we just set it up like there's surviving and not surviving. And then we scare ourselves. And then we ask ourselves these questions like, what's worse, having a bad experience and surviving or having a bad experience and not surviving? This is self-hypnosis, though. Just understand this setup, which I've just deconstructed. Um, so it can be helpful to understand just to see how you hypnotize yourself in a way that is not working very well. So this person says, the person I was before some experiences did not, in fact, survive, maybe nitpicking. Yeah, I would say you're nitpicking. Here's why. Um, the the person you say you were before some experience never existed. That's just a story too. That who you are is not any like so are you which thought are you? Which sensation are you? Which cell of this body are you? Which role are you? Which responsibility are you? Which name are you? Are you any of those things? Do any of those things define you? But those are hopefully you can see none of those things define you. But that's all just story stuff. And so this person is just story stuff. But you're not that person. You're not that story stuff. I mean, the story is constantly in motion. And what part of the story would you say you are? Where at what like where did that story begin? If you're going to say that you existed as some person, well, when exactly did that person come to be? I said, well, when this body was born. I just don't think that's a helpful way to think about it and frame it. So, because what I'm really pointing at is because if you say I'm any of these things, well, all of these things by virtue of their nature are transitory. Like what here is not changing? There's no stability in any of this stuff. There's no stability in your bank account. There's no stability in your relationships. There's no stability in your body. There's no stability in your mind. There's no stability in your attitudes. There's no stability in any of these things. In relation, like whatever it is, none, no stability. There's the appearance, there's the illusion of stability only because some things seem to change slowly, but all of it is changing. So there's no actual stability in any of these things. And so the person, if you say, I am this person, well, that's a setup for that. I mean, that's a setup for insecurity. If you say, I am this person, oh, well, oh shit, that person has changed. Oh no, that person's changed again. Oh no, that person's just changed again. I mean, that person's always changing that. Like, that's why I said the person never existed. Is that what all you're talking about was just like this snapshot of this one instant, but that's it. I mean, are you that instant? I don't think so. So there's but do you have any doubt but what you exist? I mean, with your mind, you can create doubt about anything, but I mean, like before you think about it, is there any doubt about what you exist? And hopefully the answer to that is no, there's no doubt because existence doesn't require any thinking about it. And that it doesn't depend upon any, doesn't depend on any of the things that are coming and going, changing. It doesn't depend upon the person that you think you were or the person that you think you'll become or any of that. And this person says, in other words, I lost something. I lost my innocence. I lost my belief. If you can lose it, it's not you. I mean, it's kind of one of those things that's kind of obvious when you recognize it. Uh, this is really a big, this is like kind of central to everything that I was trying to share today. Because if you think, uh, I'm reminded of there's a Steve Martin movie called The Jerk. And at the end of the movie, he's he's having he's like made this fortune, but then he's having I can't remember exactly how it goes. There was some class action suit or something, and he's writing these checks to all of the people individually. It's like $1.84 or something like that to millions of people, and he gets up and he says, I don't need anything. I don't need anything at all. He says, except this lamp. And he says, but that's it. I don't need anything except this lamp. And he says, and maybe this pen, but that's all. I don't need anything at all except this lamp and this pen and maybe these slippers. And so we're kind of like that, like you don't need anything at all. You don't depend on anything. But we we get these ideas of I need this and I need that. I need these feelings. I need these relationships. I need this money. I need these sensations. I need these ideas of health. I need these stories that I'm going to live forever. I need to have approval. I need to get all these things. You don't need any of those things. I need a car. I need money. And you don't need any of those things. I need to have a body. I need to have a personality. I need to have whatever. You don't need any of those things. You don't need any of those things. And so if you can lose it, that's not you, which is good news. But most people become preoccupied with the losing. They're like, oh no, I lost this thing. And that was so essential for me. I'll never be the same. Oh, I'll never get it back. Oh, my life is ruined now. But if you lost it, you don't need it. That's uh should be an obvious thing if you really observe. Like if you need by if you need something, by definition, that's required for your existence. Need means it's required for your existence. So if you can lose something and you still exist, you don't need it, which means it's not you. Because the only thing that's required for your existence is you, by definition. So if you exist and you don't have something, in other words, if you think you lost something, but you still exist, that's not you. Because if you exist, if you lost something and you needed it, you wouldn't exist. So if you exist, whatever you don't have, that's not you. You don't need it. So this idea of losing something, losing your innocence, losing a belief, it's like, good, fine, let it go. What a relief. Oh, thank God I don't need innocence. Anyway, I mean, what not, sorry. I don't mean to like be aggressive about that. When I said nonsense, but I don't mean I'm not saying that to you like as a personal attack or something. But I mean just like this, the idea of innocence as though it was a thing that uh that could be had. You can't have innocence. Innocence is what's here when there's nothing that's had. When there's nothing that's held, there's no pretense, there's no armor, there's no shield, there's nothing there. That's, total defenselessness, helplessness. That's innocence. So if you had something and you lost it, I promise you, you didn't lose innocence. You couldn't lose innocence. So that's just a story that's not true. Somebody says, so embrace fear. Uh, I don't know. I mean, you could certainly understand it that way. If you can do that and that gives you good results, then that would be then great. I think your results are the measure. Um, I'm not sure that I'm not sure that I know how to embrace fear, so I can't say for sure whether that's a good idea or if that's what I'm talking about. Um, this is more what I'm proposing, which could be exactly what you mean when you say embrace fear. But again, I can only speak from my own experience. So the way I would understand it or describe it would be, it's like it is really innocence. It is like being a helpless infant. Uh, like they're I don't know how to make this heart beat. I don't know how to make the sun shine. I don't know how to make gravity work. And I don't know how to do any of this stuff. So I'm like a helpless infant. It's like trust. It's a kind of a loaded term, but it's innocence, let's say. Innocence, I think, is a better term. I I just don't, but the innocence is not, it's not something that can be uh lost or covered up, really. I mean, the innocence is always just here in the uh underneath it all, and it could just be acknowledged that I really don't know. I really, really, really don't know. Because if you already know, if you already, because that's the thing about the fear is there's a conclusion. I know what this is. This is bad. I know where this is going. I know what the outcome of this is, and this is going to be awful, unacceptable. So then, uh, that's that's I can't receive if I've already decided that I know. It's sort of like this idea of you can't you can't receive if you already have a full bowl. So to empty your bowl, it's kind of that idea. So it's to empty your bowl, to empty your bowl of all of these stories of I know what this is. If I'm telling myself this story and this story is resulting in this fear, then why don't why don't I just really be honest? I don't know. I really don't know. My like I tried my way. I'm not saying don't try it. I mean, if you've never tried it, uh, try it out. See if it works for you. If it works for you to tell yourself this scary story and go through that whole process, if that works well for you, great. But I've tried it, hasn't worked for me. Uh, it seemed, I asked some questions of all of you about this, and it seems like it hasn't worked well for you either. So I'm just proposing, since there's this thing that we've done, and we've been doing it for a long time, repeatedly, every day, many times every day, and it has not worked well for us. How about instead we just say, well, gee, maybe I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Why am I going to keep telling myself I know? And the thing I insist that I know, which I don't really know, is just giving me outcomes that I don't want. I'm like, how many times am I going to do this? I've done it. Man, if you think about it, how many times have you done that today? I mean, wouldn't you say probably dozens of times today? So if we just said 10 times on average a day, and it's got to be way more than that, but even if it was just 10 times a day, 365 days in a year, so that's 3,650 times in a year, and then times however many years you've been alive. It's like that's a lot of trying of something. Don't you think like you you're not satisfied with that yet? Uh, I kind of got done with that. I'm just like, okay, I've done enough of that. That doesn't give me the outcome that I want. Like I gave it a fair shot. I'm pretty sure that tens of thousands of times I tried, I gave it a fair shot. But since that's not working, I'm gonna stop doing that. If and I'm not quite that uh the idea of embracing fear sounds really nice. It sounds like really anybody who can do that, that I really uh have like that's really amazing. I'm not that advanced, so I can't speak to that. I'm more just like I don't know. So so that's what I can say about that. This person says, what if you're not so much afraid of or bracing against not surviving, but more trying to ensure you never feel the associated pain and hurt again? All my resistance seems to be trying to protect my poor fragile self from being hurt. Same thing. Uh, I, I, I would say it's the same thing. So if you didn't like my wording, you can substitute your wording, but it's just the same exact idea. So if it's not about surviving for you, it's about not wanting to be hurt. Everything that I said, I'm pretty sure still applies to that. Uh, Somebody says, can you summarize really succinctly the new way versus chasing safety and security? Let me see. Really succinctly. Recognize when you are scaring yourself and choose to let go. That was about as succinct as I can get. This person says, avoidance strategy here, don't like pain. Me either. Me either. Uh, which is why that's why I said, for me, I'm not really at that level of like embracing the fear or the pain or whatever, because that's a little too advanced for me. But I can only barely, maybe uh, start to approach. I don't know, and that seems to be a sufficient opening. Just I don't know. So it's like, okay, I acknowledge that there's an aversion and I don't know. So that I have found to be sufficient. It's just there's still a tendency toward aversion and I can just acknowledge and I don't know. So yes, there's oh no, please don't let that happen. And I'm like, but I don't know. I just don't know. Somebody says, did I get it correctly? Was it how do you know that the way is whatever going out there that is the gateway? So how do you know that the way is whatever going out there that is the gateway? Uh, so I think what you're referring to was that uh, so so if you go to the restaurant and you place the order, you might have gone to a restaurant that it's a culture that's not familiar to you. So you've placed your order and then they bring you some things and You're thinking, what on earth is this? This isn't at all what I ordered. This seems really weird and maybe even slightly unpleasant. Um, but it's just part of the it's part of the ritual. It's part of how they do things. If you say, "Oh no, 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 I don't, I don't want this," then they're like, "Oh, okay, he doesn't want his order." So whatever it is that's happening is we could view it as I know what this is. This is bad. An alternative to that, though, is we could view it as I don't know, and quite possibly this is this is, I mean, not even quite possibly. It seems almost impossible that it would not be that this is part of the totality. So what's happening is part of the totality. So instead of rejecting it, I could choose to just be curious. And this is there's a, again, I have to give this little uh, disclaimer because I know some people will take these things in weird ways and think, oh, Joey's advocating for just being a victim and letting people abuse you. It's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying purposefully allow yourself to be abused. I'm not saying purposefully allow yourself to endure things that are seem extremely unpleasant when you have other obvious options or something like that. I'm just saying that in life there are things that do happen where it's like, interesting. This seems to be happening. And and you could fight it for no, and for nothing. Like no good will come from fighting it because it's sort of like you could fight with the weather, right? So there are things in life that are like the weather. That's what I'm talking about. When there are things that's like the weather, you can fight with it or not. And you know, if you fight with it because you say, and I as you know, as like well, I was gonna say I still fight with the weather, but I will say I've gotten a little bit better about it. Um, but you know, it's like if you fight with the weather, what good is going to come from that? So, uh, to it's like people will fight with the weather. People will fight with rain. People fight with rain. It's just crazy, you know. But so if you're fighting with the rain, you just see the rain. Oh God, the rain's, you know, the rain. I don't want to be wet. The rain, you know, is ruining my birthday party, whatever, you know. But on the other hand, uh, if you don't fight with the rain, if you just open to the rain, I'm not saying you necessarily have to go stand out in the rain, although you could. I mean, there's no real harm that's likely to come from standing out in the rain. Um, it depends, you know, like if it's cold enough, don't go stand out in the rain. But you know, if it's like a nice warm summer day, and it's probably not going to harm you to go stand out in the rain. But you know, you could instead just acknowledge, okay, I don't know. I don't really know. So, and through that, you might discover things. You might start to receive uh, gifts through that you would not have been open to receiving when you were fighting with it. And that's what I'm talking about. It's like there are things that are going to happen in our lives. It's like if you find yourself in a situation, if you find yourself in a situation where like you're experiencing certain uh, you know, physical symptoms or sensations or something like that. I'm not advocating that if that you might not want to take some action to maybe, you know, try some things in the spirit of self-care. Like that would be wise if it seems like a good idea to you. But at the same time, if something's happening in that moment, you could fight with it and say, "Oh God, this shouldn't be happening. This is awful. This is so scary. This is the worst possible thing." Or you could acknowledge, well, this is happening. I don't know what it is. I just don't know. I really don't know. And it's same with money, relationship stuff, whatever it is, whatever is happening in the moment or whatever's already happened, could fight with it or not. Did that answer your question? Okay. Somebody says, "What are your thoughts on affirmations? I use them to put my attention on something I want, and I've done this to the point where a desire is no longer a desire. I almost feel like I no longer need to do it anymore as I feel I have it." Just wanted to hear your thoughts on this. Well, um, yeah, so I don't have a strong opinion about affirmations. Um, I I think that uh, as I have said with other things, if something your results uh, are what I would say should be your guide. So if you're getting the results that you want, you're satisfied with the results, uh, then great. If you're not satisfied with the results, then you might want to consider some other possibilities. But but in general, I would say um, I'm not personally a big advocate of like mechanical affirmations. Just like repeating something over and over and over and over and over. Um, although can can be effective for certain outcomes if you're really just focused on a particular outcome. I mean, I won't deny that. I've in the past I've used them in that way many years ago. But I see I think of affirmations as I don't really I'm more interested in intention. So if an affirmation would be a form of an intention, and in that respect, I think it's useful. Um, I really think there's value in getting clear on what's important to you and and uh, and then working with intention in order to primarily in order to reveal whatever it is that seems to be interfering with the uh, complete resolution of that. So that's how that's mostly what I'm interested in. But in terms of what you say about you use the affirmations to put your attention on something you want, and you've done this to a point where a desire is no longer a desire. I almost feel like I no longer need to do it anymore, as I feel I have it. Um, yeah, that can happen. I think that's a pretty common outcome, which can be useful or not, depending. Uh, so here's what I mean. Um, so sometimes when people use affirmations, uh, they will get to a point where they have in their imagination they already have it, and therefore they no longer have any. What you don't have a desire to achieve something you already have. Uh, so so that will happen for many people is that we'll get to a point where we're like, well, that's weird. I really wanted this thing, but now I don't really want it because I already have it, even though I don't have it. That's weird, right? Like my like in my imagination, I've got $1 billion. My bank account, on the other hand, does not show that. Um, so that can be really useful if you don't really want it. Uh, but if you do, is a little bit troublesome because then you still have the desire, but but you can't really you don't have the motivation any longer because you already have the sense that it's fulfilled. It's a little confusing. So I that's another reason why I'm not really a big advocate of using them in that way. I really am, as I said, more interested in working with intention in order to clarify whatever it is that seems to be, whatever the obstacles are, the internal obstacles to that, resolving the internal obstacles. And then um, that seems to give more completely satisfactory results. Uh, that's what I can say about that. I don't know if that's helpful to you or not. Somebody says, how can we get conscious of subconscious stories we tell ourselves? That's a great question. Well, one way that comes to mind is to uh, just to write, um, similar to how I suggest writing what you want. In an uncensored way, you can also just allow yourself to write in an uncensored way whatever it is that comes up. So you can give yourself permission to write. The prompt could be something like, uh, uh, what am I, what am I, uh, how do I feel? You can say like, how do I feel that I'm a victim, or that I can't, or that I'm prevented or blocked from what I really want, or something like that. Um, and just allow yourself, give permission to all parts of yourself to express themselves in an uncensored way. And so, and then you just write whatever comes up again without censoring it. This is it gets easier with practice. At first, it's can be challenging for some people because we have, many people have overly developed uh, censoring mechanisms because it's social conditioning. So we're trained to be social to get along socially. So censoring ourselves so that we can get approval from others is a big part of socialization. So a lot of the time we will block ourselves from even consciously accessing or acknowledging parts of ourselves that we believe are socially undesirable or unacceptable, which can sometimes be those parts. It depends, but oftentimes can be those parts. So just give practice would be a good way to do it. Somebody says presence exposes vulnerability, past and present hurts, etc. Full contact hurts. Distance keeps me functional. How can I stop feeling unsafe and in a constant reactive survival mode, trying to protect myself, avoiding presence? Also, knowing that I'm here to experience everything fully, am I failing the point of existence, resisting, or is resistance part of what I'm here to experience? Um, I mean, so forget about the idea of failing. Uh, you so so you say that presence exposes vulnerability, past and present hurts, etc. Full contact hurts. Distance keeps me functional. Well, that's uh that's the story that you've been telling yourself, and uh I get it. That's the story you've been telling yourself. I would start just by asking. I'd invite you to ask yourself, is that true? Does distance keep you functional? I mean, I'm sure that there's a certain level of truth to that, but if you really examine that more deeply, is that actually working? I suspect it's probably not. That's probably why you're asking this question. It's probably wearing thin. And so on some level, at least you probably recognize that it's not really it's not actually a real solution. It was like uh, it was a temporary, it was a temporary uh, reactive strategy. But in the long term, it's not sustainable. So being honest with yourself about that would probably be a good start. Um, and then being being really gentle with yourself. So there's something I get this sense. So like full contact hurts. So it's like it's almost seems as though in this story that you've been telling yourself, there's either just sort of like black and white. Either you are full contact and there's presence and full contact, or there's distance. And and neither of those is really that neither of those extremes is giving you the results that you want. I assume based on this question. So then you could consider inviting another possibility that's more middle path. So does it have to be those extremes? Do you have to go full contact? Does it have to be full presence or in the ways that you've been imagining it? Could it be, uh, is there some middle path that allows something that's more palatable? Um, and you say you know that you're here to experience everything fully, and then you're wondering, are you failing or is resistance part of what you're here to experience? I would say it is. I mean, I don't think that it's something that's like exactly like that. That you're here to experience resistance. It's more that whatever it is that's happening is the opportunity. It's the perfect opportunity right now. Uh, so it's not like you need to experience resistance or you need not to experience resistance or there's certain things that you should or shouldn't experience. It's just that whatever is happening now is the opportunity. So you don't have to look for something else and you don't have to uh, have any regrets about anything that's happened in the past where you say, oh, I failed. Because that all those things do is serve to just distract you from accepting the opportunity that's here now. And the opportunity that's here now is just this right now, whatever is happening now, whatever is here that you just intuitively have a sense that you could just open to that you could just say, okay, okay. And even if there's some hesitation about it, you could in some very authentic way for you, not ever in a forceful way, not because you think you should do something or you think it's the right thing to do or somebody else told you or anything like that, but just if you intuitively have a sense that it would be helpful, good, and wholesome for you just to have a little bit of curiosity or openness to something, even if there's hesitation, then you could explore that presently in whatever capacity is available for you in a way that's gentle and authentic. So it doesn't have to be this full contact presence thing, which sounds like it's a little bit aggressive and unsustainable for you, but it could be just this very gentle thing. Just like right now, is there some some aspect of myself, some aspect of my experience that has been needing acknowledgement, needing space that I could just be curious about, open to in a good way for myself now, even just for a, a second, even in just a little bit. And and again, not in a forceful or aggressive way, not because you should, but just because you're intuitively drawn to that. And I think that you would find that if you, and I don't think this will come as a surprise, if you do that in small ways consistently, uh, that will really add up. It's there's so much I think popular emphasis placed on these big dramatic kinds of breakthrough experiences, which is not helpful, I don't think, for most of us because uh, first of all, like, those breakthrough experiences might be kind of difficult or unpleasant or something like that, or expensive. Those seem to happen sometimes for people because they go on they do the ayahuasca retreat in the some you know exotic location or something. Costs 10 grand. Um, but for another reason, because it's usually difficult to integrate. But so you're not likely to have lots of those big breakthrough experiences, and even when you do, they're unlikely to really make that much of a difference actually in your day-to-day life. But the little things done regularly, daily, add up very significantly over time. So just every time that you just have that little bit of curiosity and openness and love and compassion for yourself, that makes a difference. That's actually integrated. And when you do that every day, even if it's just a very small thing, then after, it's hard to say exactly, but let's say after a month or 3 months or something, you start to really notice, my life is different. My life is a little bit more relaxed. My life is a little bit more open and peaceful, free. I have more options that I'm aware of that seem accessible to me. So that would be my main recommendation. Somebody says I could have lived better without anxiety or survival mode experience. Seems that way. I get it, but that's also, I think, a common trap is then we can start looking back and saying, oh, what, wasted years. Look at how how great my life could be if only. And I've done plenty of that myself, wasted potential. Oh my goodness. It's like, well, h- again, how do I know? How do I know? That's just those are just stories based on ideas that come from the past. They're not, like, how do I even know those are true? Those are just mostly just borrowed from society. It's like, well, if I hadn't if I hadn't struggled with all the anxiety and survival experiences, then I would have so much more money and I would have better health and I'd have I'd have all these better relationships and my friendships would be stronger. I wouldn't have, you know, done all these stupid things and whatever. Okay, interesting. Uh, but how do I know that's actually better? How do I know that? I don't. I really don't. Um, Ultimately, it seems to me that we're each here to learn what it is that we're wanting to learn that satisfies our soul. And that is not something that can be measured by any external uh, standards. Nobody else can know that. Nobody else can determine that. It doesn't, it's not, it's not about how successful of a career or how much money or how much fame or how, you know, good your looks or how much power. It's not about any of that because all of those things they come and they go. Those things are all transitory. It's what you're wanting, what you're really longing deeply to learn to satisfy your soul. And that's the what that looks like on the outside doesn't matter at all. I, 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 I know that might be difficult to believe, but it really can't matter what it looks like on the outside. Somebody says, everything you say is so obviously true, and yet I have been blind to it all my life. Me too. Uh, so if what I want most is simply to be aligned with my highest purpose, but I haven't a clue what that is, what is my best strategy? Or at least the best strategy to start off with, please? Do I just open to receive and trust God to lead me onwards without any kind of input from my imagination or whatever? Uh, well, you say you haven't a clue what that is. I, so in my experience, that's not likely to be true that you don't have a clue. What's more likely to be true is that they're just layers of conditioning that have you thinking that your purpose needs to look like something in particular, or it needs to have certain qualities to it that will make it a good enough purpose or something like that. Um, so I, I, uh, my view is that we each have within us already everything, everything that we need. It's already there. The entirety of the uh let's say the whole blueprint, it's there kind of like in a seed. So it's not it's not fully expressed or developed, but it's there in its seed form. So the seed doesn't need to go looking outside of itself to say, how should I be? Because nobody else can know that knowledge, that already exists within the seed. So if the seed is looking outside for, well, how do I know what my purpose is? How do I know what I'm supposed to be? Then it's just going to get confused. I wrote a children's book like 25 years ago. Um, but it was based on this theme. I never published it, but it was a little goofy, but it was called The Rainbow Tree. And it was this idea that there's this this little sapling that's sprouting, and it's, I don't remember how it goes. Like a bird tells it something like, "What kind of tree are you?" And it's like, "Well, I don't know. I didn't even know there was, like, so what kind of, I don't know." And then the bird says, "Well, you should find that out. Like, are you a good tree or something? Are you a bad tree? You need to know." And so this little sapling is like asking all the other trees, "Well, what's the best kind of tree to be?" And all the other trees tell it, "Well, the best kind of tree is the kind that I am." Um, but of course, the tree becomes exactly what it is. I mean, it can't be something else. So, uh, it's wasted effort to look outside for some kind of knowledge about who you are, what your purpose is. But society is just like in that children's story that I wrote. It's like society is like all those other trees. It's very happy to tell you, oh, the best kind of, best kind is like this kind. You should be tall, you should be thin, you should have straight hair, you should have brown eyes, you should have blue eyes, you should have, curly hair, you should have six pack abs, you should have, it's like, oh my goodness, I didn't know. I had no idea. So we get distracted and we think, oh, my purpose has to be some kind of glorious thing that I can proclaim to the world. Look how marvelous my purpose is. And it's really not like that. So uh, that would be the number one thing is just trust that it's already there in you. It's already happening. You can't even help it. Uh, I mean, like you can't prevent it. It's inevitable. The only thing is that you can, of course, like you can't prevent it, but you can kind of like you can make it more awkward by trying to be something else or insist that it should be something else or it has to be this glorious thing or whatever. So I mainly just recommend just trust and know that your purpose is not something that's necessarily going to be expressed as like I'm a painter or I'm a guitar player or I'm a hairdresser or I'm whatever. It's like that's incidental. It does not have to be anything that can be named. It does not have to be anything that can be described. It does not have to be anything that anybody else would know about or acknowledge or care about. It does not have to be some sort of glorious thing. It's actually you. And so really just trust in that and just uh, talk to just take time each day with yourself and talk to those parts of you that are already there that know they have all this knowledge. They will so happily tell you everything you need to know if you just start making space. So you just let all the parts of you know. Just take time every day and just let all parts of you know. Uh, I love you. Thank you. And uh, I'm doing the best I can to make space for you. And then just listen and don't demand anything. Don't say, I'm giving you 5 minutes and you better tell me what is my purpose. Because it won't work like that. But if you just say, I love you, thank you. I'm doing the best I can to make space and to listen. And whatever it is that you have to say, to express, I will do my best to listen. And just have that intention. And like I said, don't make any demands that anything about anything. Like if you hear something, great. If you don't hear something, it's great. Just have that intention. Just be receptive in that way. Uh, have compassion for all parts of yourself, the same as you would have compassion on your good days, on your best days with a small child, with an infant. And like I say your best days because I know like we're not always at our best and sometimes we can be impatient and everything, but like just think about those golden moments when you're really at your best and you just have that total love and compassion. If you can give yourself just even the smallest amount of that on a regular basis, then you'll start to get more clued in. And let me know how that goes. Somebody says we can still miss something we don't need. Yeah. Uh, yeah, but that but is that helpful? I don't think it is. I think that uh, it is more helpful to acknowledge that everything is all expressions are transitory. So uh, when something is appearing in a certain way, then just acknowledge that, and when it's no longer appearing in that way, then just let it go. Uh, and and everyone benefits from that. You benefit from that. So like think about do you want it's like think about if you go through your life and everyone that anytime you make any contact with anyone, they attach a string to you. And then wherever you go, they're just pulling on those strings. It starts to become quite burdensome. So instead of doing that because if you say I miss something, whether it's a person or an experience or whatever it is, it's sort of like you got that string attached and you're pulling on it. And so that whatever that is, you're not allowing it to be fully free to move to its next expression, but you're also binding yourself. Now you're holding onto this string unnecessarily. So the more that you choose to let that go, then the more you're able to fully receive what it is that's happening now, how life is expressing now. Somebody says, and why innocence made us happy and joyful and fearless if we don't need it? It eased to be whole. I'm not sure about that last part, but um, and then it goes on. Then why? Oh, indeed, being an adult is being able to let go of what we don't want to hear and was forced to listen when kids. So, so I mean, I mean, as I said earlier, what I was proposing that what really remains when everything that can be lost is lost is the real innocence. And I would say that is the happiness and joy and fearlessness. Because when everything that can be lost is lost, then all that remains is that happiness and joy and fearlessness and wholeness. Somebody says, could the ask method be similar to affirmations in that way? Could we lose our motivation and get a sense that we have what we want when we don't have it? Uh, I think this is, I don't know. I mean, doesn't seem likely. Uh, I mean, if you have that experience, you can let me know, but it doesn't seem likely to me. Um, because with the ask method, uh, I mean, very much connected to in many ways to what I talked about today. I mean, we start out by asking if uh, if there's any actual obvious danger right now. So it's really about uh, a kind of acknowledging that there's this habit of um, fear and anxiety that is not helpful in our lives and that we have other options available to us. So I don't think it's likely to give to produce that kind of outcome. But if you have that happen, please let me know. Okay. Almost last one. Um, this person says, please consider publishing your children's books. I try to convey your teachings to my 7-year-old daughter, but she tends to be dismissive. But if they were formatted as picture books, I bet she'd be way more receptive. Yeah, I appreciate that idea, and I would like I aim to cultivate within myself uh, a being good with children. Um, so it would be helpful for me. We'll see how that works. Because my initial thought on that was, like I mean, I don't even, I barely even like my kids don't want to hear it either. So I, every once in a while when I have an opportunity, that seems like it could be useful. I'll make an invitation, like, is this working well for you? Might you, do you see, are there any other options available to you? Like, what do you really want through fighting with your sibling? But usually doesn't go over very well. They roll their eyes like, "Oh God, Dad again." Um, but one day soon, maybe I'll really embrace that I am good with children, communicating these ideas with children, and then we'll see. Maybe that will happen. I appreciate the encouragement. Okay, so I thought there was just one more, but then a couple more appeared. So we'll see what I can do here. So this says, thanks for your response to my question. Exactly what I needed to hear. I am that little tree of yours that has spent all her life comparing herself with others and concluding she's defective. No more. I'm going to stop beating myself up for simply being me. Good. That's beautiful. I never realized how violent I am to myself until you pointed it out in response to another of my questions the other week. Utterly shocked and horrified. And I am really working to stop this with encouraging results. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like this has been going on for a long time. It did not start with you. So but the good news is it can stop with you, right? So it's like the violence we learned, we all inherited the violence. It did not start with us, but we can choose to find a new way uh, within ourselves, and that new way allows for uh, it creates an invitation for a new way for others as well. Uh, I really have. I don't like the word hope, but I'll say I have some. I'm hopeful about that as a legitimate possibility. I know it might not seem particularly promising at this time. If you look at the things that are reported in the so-called news, but I really do think that there's a unique opportunity right now that starts with us. I mean, it's not like a movement that we're going to, create on the outside, but just with a movement within ourselves to a new way of genuine love and peace and kindness, genuine kindness, taking the time. Uh, and I think that that can spill over from the inside to the outside. So I'm happy to hear that. Thank you. Somebody says, "What's the best way to find out what my soul really wants, um, and understand its language?" Similar to what I was describing to the other person who asked a similar question just a moment ago. Um, just take that time every day, just a moment, even just having that intention, just to let all parts of you know, I love you, thank you, and I'm doing my best to listen and make space for you, and then just do your best to follow through on that. And if you forget for the next 24 hours, don't beat yourself up about it. Just renew that commitment. If you do that on a consistent basis, you'll notice that things change. I mean, the power of intention is remarkable. I think most people overlook it, but just having a consistent intention is so powerful. And if you do that, so if you do that every day, what happens is that from one day to the next, not much usually. I mean, just be honest about it. But and because for the most part, you set the intention once and you're going to forget about it like within 5 seconds because the old habit takes over. And you'll probably forget about it until the next day. But if you then renew that intention, you're probably going to forget about it again until the next day. But if you keep doing that after, I don't know, some amount of time, then what starts to happen is you're in the background, you know that you're like, wow, I'm kind of serious about this. This is actually, this is really what I want. And so now your subconscious is working for you. It's like, okay, I'm going to actually start to pay attention. I'm really going to start to notice what is being communicated from within me? What are these parts of me saying? What are they wanting? And you start to notice, you say, what's its language? You start to notice the language. The language is not really some unfamiliar language to you. I mean, it will start to actually become translated into your normal way of thinking. But at first, you just are dismissing it. You're censoring it because, like I said earlier, these parts were, you learn to censor these parts because you were taught that's foolish, there's no time for that, that's impractical, it's not important, whatever, whatever the reasons. There are so many possible reasons, but these parts you learn to censor, so it's just a matter of having that intention, renewing the intention, creating that space, making the space, And pretty soon you'll start to notice it's like they've been there all along. It's not going to be a total shock to you. There's like it's not new information really. It's just that when it comes to you, you'll be like, oh, that? Oh. You're like, well, I already knew that. But I mean, maybe it will happen. It'll like come to you like, oh my God, I had no idea. Like I I I've all my life I've really dreamed of being a, abstract dancer or something. And but I never knew. Could happen, but it's unlikely. It's like it's been there all along. It's just you were censoring it. And when you start to really actually hear it and acknowledge it, then it won't be, I don't think it will be a big surprise and it will be easy to understand it. You say like a recognition or a remembering. Yeah, sort of. I mean, yeah, I think we got through them all today. Thank you, everybody. Blessings to you all. Take care. Bye for now.